this lesson, we're going to be looking at the probability scale. Let's jump right in. So probability. So the probability, or you can use the word chance if you would like, it's just how likely something is to happen. So last lesson, we looked very briefly at the probability scale. On the left-hand side, we say that things have a 0% chance of happening. And on the right-hand side, we say things have a 100% chance of happening. The words we associate with this are, starting from the left, if something has a 0% chance of happening, we call that impossible. If it's a bit more likely than impossible, we say it's unlikely. Then we've got, if it's halfway, if it's 50-50, we say that's an equal chance. If something is fairly likely to happen, we call it likely. And if something is guaranteed to happen, we use the word certain. Okay, some examples of these, starting from the right. The sun rising tomorrow. Now, the sun has to rise tomorrow, okay? There's this guaranteed. We know that's going to happen. This evening, I'm probably going to watch TV, and I think you're probably going to watch TV as well. So I'd say that's quite likely that you're probably going to watch TV this evening. You may not. You may decide to read a book, but most people watch TV most evenings. Flipping a coin and it lands on heads. There's only two sides of a coin, heads or tails, so it's either going to land on heads or tails. So that's 50-50 chance. Finding a £10 note on the floor is pretty unlikely. Whenever I walk out the door, I don't find myself tripping over £10 notes. I wish I did. But it's a fairly unlikely. It happens maybe once every couple of years, I'd say. And then impossible, the sun not setting tonight. So again, so we all know the sun is good, just as it's going to rise tomorrow morning, it is definitely going to set tonight. So there's no chance that the sun will not set tonight, okay? And when we look at probabilities, we can also assign numbers to probabilities. If something is impossible, we give it a value of 0. 0 means that it's impossible. And if something has a probability of 1, it means it's guaranteed, okay? And everything else is in between. So it's all decimal numbers in between, okay? For example, this is a first quarter mark. That would be 0.25. This 50-50 would be 0.5. And this 3/4 mark would be 0.75, okay? So those are the numbers we can start looking at in the probability scale. So quick task for you. I've got 8 different events here, okay? So event A is going to rain tomorrow, and it has a probability of 0.5. You need to think where you would put these probabilities on this scale, okay? So the first one, we've said it's going to rain tomorrow, and it's a probability of 0.5. Well, looking at the scale, it goes from 0 to 1, and there is a little dash, and it looks like there's 10 dashes going along this scale. So that means each of these dashes represent 1/10, or 0.1 on this scale. So 0.1, 0.2, 0.3, 0.4, 0.5, 0.6, 0.7, 0.8, and 0.9, and 1 at the end there, okay? So the chance it'll rain tomorrow, where would I plot that on this line? Well, 0.5 is there. So event A would be exactly halfway on the probability line, okay? So have a look at these. Some of these are percentages as well, so you may have to have a think about how you're going to convert these percentages into decimals, okay? So pause the video and have a go at this task. Best of luck. Okay, so event B, there will be a test on Monday, probability of 0.1. Well, I can see 0.1 by here, so that's event B. Now, event C, 25%. 25% as a decimal is 0.25, and that looks like it's going to be between 0.2 and 0.3. So there's event C. Dan will fly home from school. Now, last time I saw Dan, I don't think he had a set of wings on him, so that's going to be impossible. And this is represented by 0 out of 10. And 0 divided by anything is still 0. So Dan flying home, event D will be on the 0 mark. For E, Mary will pass her driving test, 7 out of 10. Well, if we convert 7 out of 10 into a decimal, you would get 0.7, and 0.7 is on the probability scale by there. Wales will win their next match. Again, 60%. We could turn that into a decimal by turning into 0.6. 0.6 is just by there. G, it will snow at Christmas. So we can solve this by simply solving the fraction, solving 4 over 5. It's the same as doing 4 divided by 5, which is 0.8. And we can see event G would go on 0.8. And for H, There will be homework today, 0.92. That is just going to be ever so slightly further ahead than 0.9, and there it is. Okay, so well done if you got those. Now let's have a look at some examples for the main task this lesson. So we need to match the event with the correct letter on the probability scale below it, okay? So we're told that Mary will win her tennis match. There's a probability of her winning a tennis match of 4/5, so 4 out of 5 times she wins her tennis match, okay? So let's have a think. What is this scale telling us? So 0, we've got 0 on the far left, and we've got 1 on the far right, okay? How many increments do we have? Well, starting from the left, we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, and then 5, okay? So this scale is split up into 5 equal parts, okay? So that means each of these increments represents a fifth. C is equal to 1/5, B is equal to 2/5, this one is equal to 3/5, and this one is equal to 4/5. Remember, 0 over 5 is equal to 0, and 5 over 5 is equal to 1. So which of these letters represents 4 over 5? Well, quite clearly, it is letter A. Letter A represents the probability of 4 over 5. Okay, let's have a look at another example. It will snow tomorrow. Probability, there is a 0 over 4 probability that it will snow tomorrow, okay? Well, hopefully we shouldn't even need to figure out the increments on this graph, because we should all know that 0 divided by 4 is 0. We all know that if something is impossible, it is a probability of 0. Therefore, in this case, the answer is D. Okay? Nice and easy, quick one that. Let's have a look at another example. So here we go. It's getting a little bit more tricky now, okay? So the probability that Mary will become famous is 3/4, okay? Now I'm looking at this probability scale, and it doesn't like it split into quarters. Let's count how many increments there are. So how many portions we've got? We've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. We've got 8 segments here. So that means this this line represents 1/8, this represents 2/8, 3/8, 4/8, and so on, so forth. Okay, 5/8, 6/8, 7/8. And remember, 0 over 8 is 0, and 8 over 8 is 1. Okay, but we're given this probability in 3/4. How are we going to turn this into 8? Well, all we need to do is convert the fraction. So what do we have to do to 4, multiplying or dividing, to get from 4 to 8? Well, we have to multiply it by 2. And whatever we do to the bottom number of a fraction, we have to do to the top of the fraction as well. So if 4 times 2 is 8, that means 3 times 2 is 6. Is one of these letters on the 6/8 mark on the scale? Yes, letter C is. So the probability that Mary will become famous is represented by the letter C on this scale. Okay, let's have a look at another example. The probability that John will score in his next football match is a probability of 12 over 20. So 12 out of 20, okay? Now let's look again. Now this also doesn't look like there's 20 increments on this scale. How many increments have we got here? We've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. We've got 5 segments here. That must mean that this line represents a fifth, this one represents 2/5, this represents 3/5, 4/5, and again, just to remind you, on the far left, 0/5 is equal to 0, and 5 over 5 is equal to 1, okay? So I need to convert the probability 12 over 20 into something over 5. So I know my answer is going to be something over 5. But what can it be? How can I convert this fraction to something over 5? Well, what do I have to do to 20 to get to 5, either multiplying or dividing? Well, I have to divide it by 4. 20 divided by 4 is 5. Therefore, I have to do the same to the top. 12 divided by 4 equals 3. So I'm looking for the letter that represents 3/5. I can see that is the letter D. So letter D represents the probability that John will score in his next match. Okay? So here's your main task. So you've got 6 probability scales, and you've got 6 probabilities. You need to mark out the letter for each of the probabilities shown on the scale. Okay? So rewind the video in case you need a bit more help with this, because it's a little bit tricky, this task, but I'm sure you'll all manage, okay? So pause the video and have a go. Best of luck. Okay, so here are the answers. Very well done if you got them all right, especially some of the trickier ones towards the end there. So let's have a look at the checking question now. So the probability that the Year 9 netball team will win their next match is a probability of 8/24. Well, which letter represents this on the probability scale? So pause the video and have a go at this question, okay? Best of luck. Okay, let's have a think about how many increments we have on this probability scale. Let's see what this scale is divided into. Let's count the number of segments. We've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. This probability scale is split into 12 segments. So rather than labeling all of them, I'm just going to count across and label the letters. So first 1, 2, 3. This B represents 4/12. A represents 5/12. 6, 7. C represents 7/12. 8, 9, 10. And D represents 10/12. Okay? So one of these letters is equal to probability of 8/24. But how can I make 8/24 a fraction that is equal to something over 12? Well, I have to divide 24 by 2. If I divide the bottom number, the denominator, by 2, I have to divide the top number by 2 as well. 8 divided by 2 is 4. Which of these letters represents 4/12, so 4/12? Well, it's letter B. So well done if you found out that it was letter B was equivalent to a probability of 8/24. Okay, very well done. Thank you for listening in, guys, and we'll see you next lesson. Bye now.